What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode. And as I prepare to head off to Spain in the morning for an interview with somebody who I'm going to have on the podcast very soon, I think you're going to enjoy that conversation. I have another conversation to introduce, and this conversation that we're about to have today is with my friend, colleague, and client, Chalie Fitzgibbon. Now, Chalie is originally from Scotland, but I know he has some Irish roots if you go back there somewhere. And Chalie is kind of an interesting guy. He has managed to build up this career in construction and development in the UK market. And at the age of 32, he is now on his kind of second career, essentially. He's already built up and sold a construction business that had over 100 people working in it. And so I find that quite interesting that somebody, I guess, because we start in construction, you start at quite a young age. He left school, I think, at 15 years of age. So he's going to tell his story on how he set about building a construction business and getting into development and building up a sizable business in both of them. And what's interesting about this conversation, it was actually shot back in February, right after I had returned from Dubai. So this conversation was shot before the Iran conflict started. So there's no reference to the conflict, but there is some reference to Dubai and the market there. And it just shows you how quickly things can change. That, I was saying at the time that it looked like a really interesting market and how different things are now. Chalie today is living in Cyprus, but his focus is exclusively on the UK, and I would say he is looking at the Irish market. He's actually helping me. I've asked him, because of his UK background, I've asked him to get involved with me in building my UK mastermind. And so he is now running our weekly call on the UK market. And so if you're interested to know more about that particular thing, there is a learn more button down in the show notes. So if you just head down, click on learn more, and you can find out more about the various programs that we offer. So guys, without further ado, my conversation with Chalie Fitzgibbon. Chalie Fitzgibbon, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much, Gavin.
You've made this journey to Dublin. You jumped on a flight from Cyprus, no less. 5 hours, flew to Dublin, spoke as my guest speaker at my event yesterday, the Investor Summit, and here you are for a podcast. Dedication. It's
Still
a Sunday.
Yes, yeah, well, no rest for the wicked.
Yeah. So tell us, Chalie, for the people that are listening, they'll probably recognize a little hint of Scottish accent there. Why don't you tell us what it is that you do, and just give us your elevator pitch, so to speak.
Yeah, so I work in construction and property development. That's the elevator pitch done.
In the UK?
In the UK, but interested in coming into Ireland. I've been looking at Ireland actually for a couple of years, but that's a different story. I need to find the right deal to get myself in that I feel comfortable with. But yeah, I've worked all over the globe, in fact, in my previous life as a client-side project manager. Before that, I worked as a joiner, carpenter. Got nudged out of the door politely of school at a very young age. I remember having a conversation with my career advisor who was going to give me an application for Tesco, but the printer wasn't working.
Oh my God.
So yeah, left.
Thank God.
Yeah, I know. Thank God for that. Best career advice I ever got. And then I left a couple of months before doing sort of the first serious set of exams and did a few things, but left at 15 and wound up in construction. Laboured for a bit, a few different companies. Then for my sins, served my time as a joinery carpentry apprentice. Did that and then got picked up by a big national firm and did a project management program with them, and they shipped me all around the world, from America to New Zealand, Dubai,
Really?
India.
So tell us, what age were you when all of this was happening?
First sort of overseas gig I got, I would have been about 22.
22.
Yeah,
it's a good age to
21,
be traveling.
Yeah, well, the company I was working for loved it because they had a business model where there were sort of more tricky projects they would hand over to young, dumb people with no kids, no mortgage, no responsibilities. So yeah, we were sent to the sort of down and dirty sites to And it was a fantastic way to cut your teeth, and I'm so grateful for it. I mean, it all happened kind of by chance, just by bumping into people and being offered opportunities, but I couldn't have thought of a better way to get educated in the space, so very grateful for that.
And I find when I traveled for a couple of years, you can find yourself in, like say for example, in Ireland, I can remember driving back and forth on the same road home and to work every day. I remember thinking, is this it? Is this like the sum total of my experience for the next like 20 years? And so for me, getting away for a couple of years opened my eyes, and it was like I was in Dubai, I was in Qatar, I was in Africa, and I was in Spain, UK. And in that time frame, you kind of start to see things differently. You kind of say, whoa, this is how they do it over here. And so did you find that was useful for how you kind of look at things?
Yeah, I mean, similar to you, I get itchy feet and restless very easy. I mean, even now, I still move around a lot, and I like to vary the week as much as possible and go to different sites and, you know, structure it so I'm not doing the same thing every day. I'm definitely not a creature comfort person. I like things to be shaped up, but I can resonate with what you say. Traveling and particularly working in different countries, the world is less daunting to me than it is to other people. Like I can see that in the conversations that I have with, you know, peers and other business owners in my sector is, you know, when you've been to Africa, when you've been to sort of real extreme environments and you have to be incredibly resourceful. You don't have, you know, a huge supply chain at the click of a finger is ready to, you know, drop a truckload of whatever it is at your door, and you need to think on your feet and deal with language barriers, cultural barriers, and all the rest of it. You realise it is actually probably less difficult than it actually is. I mean, we're all just human beings. Buildings are buildings. Communication is communication. So I think, for better or for worse, it's made me a lot less daunted by taking on more ambitious things, and maybe what would scare other people off. I'm like, we'll figure it out.
And it just makes for a more interesting conversation at dinner time.
Or a boring one, depends who you're talking to.
Yeah. So tell us, I mean, that was your younger years. You started your own construction firm. Did you go straight from the international travel and stuff into your starting your own firm? What was the transition there?
Pretty much. I came back to the UK, I think I was 25. Well, there was a bit of an overlap, so I started to come back more often. And I had in my head that I wanted to start my own business, and I started to come back for a couple of weeks at a time, sow some seeds, try get some networking events, get clear in my own head which direction I wanted to go with it. Because at that point, I didn't really know, I didn't have clarity at least as to what I wanted this business to look like. And then I made the full jump. Was a bit of a funny story, which was I was still actually trying to finish a project in Australia. And there was a mix-up in my paperwork, and I'd been over to New Zealand for some reason or other, I couldn't remember, but just on a short trip, and I had to fly back to Australia. And there was a muck-up in the paperwork, and they decided that I didn't have a valid visa, and they actually booted me out.
Wow.
And I was put on a flight to Heathrow, and I remember getting to Heathrow and sitting down at Greg's and getting a cup of tea and going, oh, okay, well, I'm here now. And I just went for it from then. So first thing I started to do was invest in property. So me and a chap that I met at a networking event sort of teamed up, and we started buying houses and flats in and around Glasgow, flipping those, just, you know, buying the down and dirty, you know, all in the same sort of neighbourhood, doing a nice job, fixing them up, making them really good, you know, for sale or for rent, but it didn't really work. I don't think either of us really knew what we were doing, and we're, you know, not really delivering a product that was suitable for the market. We were doing really nice products.
And the market didn't want it.
Yeah, the people didn't really care about it, so it wasn't really working. We didn't lose money, but we didn't really make much either. But one of the things that I did identify in that process was one of the bottlenecks that we always encountered was the construction and good, reliable contractors. And that sort of was where my construction company was born from. And I started to sort of assemble a team just for our own projects, and then it scaled and scaled, and I thought, well, I may as well do this for other people as well. And yeah, before I knew it, you know, about 8 years later, I had 110 guys up and down the country and vans all over the place.
That's some scale, yeah. So 110 people, and that must be daunting. Like, tell us in terms of from start to finish, 110 people employed. Like, what was that? How many years was that?
It's about 7, possibly 8 years. It was a bit of a hockey stick, so we were sort of we're trundling along, and then we were getting a lot of attention because we were delivering good quality work, and we were being recommended for this, that, and the other. And I'd take on projects and go, right, we need to employ the guys now and take on more, and it sort of becomes a beast of its own, because then you'll appreciate this. You become responsible for the business's overhead, so you need to keep on fueling the fire, and you have to keep on taking on work. And sometimes you don't have the picks of which project you like to do. It's what your resource is doesn't often align with what's available. So we'd be taking on more and more projects because we had to. We've got this company now, and it needs to pay the bills and keep the lights on. As I said in your talk yesterday, I never really set out to grow this massive company. It just happened, and I identified quite early on that there was a risk to being small. When you're a small boat bobbing around in the ocean, like a small wave can knock you off keel.
Yeah.
So for me, it was all about stability. If I've got a bigger pool of resource, if there's a quiet period, we'll have some other contracts going on that still keeps money coming in. So when we're small, if one contract fell out of bed, that would be quite impactful. When we were big, if a contract fell out of bed or something was delayed, it's fine. We had other stuff to keep busy. I could just put more resources to that project.
Diversification of your income streams. Yeah, it's funny. It's like what I think I said it yesterday as well. The Mark Carney speech from Davos. He said that if you're not at the table, you are on the menu.
Yeah.
And it's all about being sort of at a scale that kind of just gives you some sort of presence, I suppose, in the market.
Yeah. That was it. And we were like turning heads, people looking at us and go, oh, what are these guys doing? Who's this young kid? Where did they come from? And we're getting a lot of attention, and you did sort of feel like you had to step up to the mark. There was an expectation level, and we had to deliver.
And so, well, construction and development, like as we know, they kind of go hand in hand. But tell us about the first, you were doing the flips, the small Glasgow flips and stuff like that. When you started your own construction firm, presumably the scale of the developments you were working on started to scale up a little bit as well. So tell us about some of those. Yeah,
the two sort of grew side by side. So when I assembled a team to help with our small flips and things, we started to do just small residential projects on the construction side. So we'd be doing house renos, extensions, that type of thing, contract value maybe £200,000, £300,000, £400,000. And then as the development scaled as well, our construction contract scaled as well. So by 2024, just before I exited that business, our typical construction contract value is probably about 5 million, and our typical development value is probably about 10 million. Right. So that scaled up nicely. Indeed. And you exited. You and I have talked about this. It wasn't necessarily a planned exit. No.
Do you want to share some of the details as to like how you found yourself selling your business unexpectedly?
Yeah, it wasn't so much a sale, more a dismantle and do the best. We were sort of on the post end of COVID. We did quite well over COVID. We kept busy. We didn't furlough a single member of staff. We had a couple of contracts that were quite out of the way. We weren't stepping over each other, so we were able to put together processes and procedures in place to work safely. We wrote to the local councils. We wrote to HSE, the Health and Safety Executive, told them what we were doing and said, look, if you've got a problem, come down and tell us. And we were left alone, so we just kept on working. But it was post-COVID that I think the construction sector started to feel the pinch, and sort of the immediate thing that we noticed was clients were becoming later and later to pay us.
Interesting.
Or some would not pay us at all, or their QSs would be a bit more heavy-handed with the red biro when it came to processing our valuations. And we were at a point there where our monthly overhead was about £700,000, £800,000. I was paying $300,000-400,000 on payroll and subcontractors alone.
Wow.
So if one client was late to pay us by 2 weeks, I'd be bankrolling the difference. And we did have a bit of a cushion, all the rest of it, but it doesn't take much. Construction, yourself, it's small margins, and you need a lot of capital weight behind you. We did have some credit facilities. We had about £2 million in revolving credit, one property backed and one unsecured, that we were able to use to sort of fund contracts. So that was the way that sort of had the business set up, as I had £2 to 2.5 million quid working capital, And I figured with that we could be delivering 10 to 12 million pounds worth of contract value at any given time. And that worked quite well. When people stop paying you and that 2.5 turns into 2 and into 1.5 and things get quite tight. So we started to have to make some tough decisions. We became harsher on clients. Some of them were okay with that, some of them weren't. Some of them weren't paying because they couldn't pay. That's what we realised. And people weren't very honest with us about it. I had to, it was a really weird time for recruitment as well. I mean, post-COVID, lots of people changed career path and the recruitment market completely changed. And, we still had projects to deliver, so we were hiring consistently. I used to joke to people that I felt not that we weren't a construction company, we were a recruitment company. Like half of my week was spent doing interviews, recruiting. And unfortunately, I hired a few wrong people, a few bad apples, a few dishonest people, which I didn't realise until it was probably too late. So we had a couple of senior members of staff start to get up to no good, quite toxic behaviour, and that rubbed off on some of the other staff, and it's contagious. And when I came aware of it and I sort of cut these people loose, it was unpopular. So, the boss is always the bad guy, right? There's always the evil guy. So I found keeping a strong culture, which we'd done really well traditionally. We always had a super happy workplace and all the rest of it. And that sort of 23, 24, it was really difficult to sustain that. We had some people that I just shouldn't have hired, and they got up to some naughty things. And then one day I was just like, this is like, what am I even doing this for?
Yeah, the joy is gone.
The joy was long gone. I was running around all over just to keep the wheels on, basically, and I was overextending myself for clients. I was overextending myself for funders, and stuff that we shouldn't really have to do. And then I had a couple of sort of private consultations with some business consultants, an accountant, and we made the decision I made the decision personally that this isn't working. I mean, we had a few instances that really tipped it over. One of our staff members burgled our offices over the weekend, wiped it out, computers, TVs, printers, pieces of furniture, gone.
Over the weekend? Over
the weekend, yeah.
So on Monday morning, what's this?
It was a Sunday, so I'd driven down to see my dad, actually, and I was on my way back up to Edinburgh, and I had some bits and pieces to do, so I thought I'll just stop in at the office to grab. I had some paper folders that I had to grab because I was just doing some sort of boring weekend sort of admin-y stuff. And I think it was about 6-7 o'clock in the evening. I'm just going to quickly nick in, open the door, and it was just empty.
Oh my God.
It was frightening, like absolutely frightening. So then we had a criminal investigation in all of a sudden. There was some financial obscurities that I was starting to witness. I was being told stories from members of staff. Oh, this person's done this. I've got a suspicion about this person. Nobody was trusting each other. It all went a bit, dark and closed out, which, to be fair, construction kind of is like that. I mean, it's called contracting for a reason. It's litigation heavy, and it's all about, control and delegating responsibility and a hierarchy of responsibility. But it was just getting sort of not where it should be, and I thought, right, I can either inject loads of money into this and try rebuild it, or
cut my losses.
Not so much cut my losses, but just pivot and sort of reimagine the business. And that's kind of what happened. I thought I was at a point where we were at a pinch point. I was like, right, I have to put more money into this, or I can change tact. And I felt like I was chucking good money after bad. And I was looking at the team, and I was sort of pushing and prodding, and the response I was getting, like, I didn't like the look of. And so I had a few meetings, a few calls. We decided to sort of take what was working and keep that, sort of restructured the business, got rid of the stuff that wasn't working, and kept the stuff that was working, and reimagined the business and completely transformed it over the next 2 years.
So let's just fast forward to, you were working in Edinburgh, you had 110 people. Describe your business and your life today. First of all, where are you living?
So I live in Cyprus now.
And you have a UK construction business?
I've got a number of businesses. All my business is still in the UK. So I still have construction business, still have property development business. I have 3 members of staff that I deal with. We've got lots of members of staff, but I don't interact with most of them. There's 3 that I deal with on a day-to-day, all remote, different corners of the world. I come back to the UK about once a month. I'm here for about a week, between London and Edinburgh. And we're leaning in on the bits that are profitable, the bits that I enjoy. There's a lot of mess and wake from sort of the previous business that I'm having to deal with as well. Like, I've been involved in this criminal case, and I've got a civil case, and I've got previous business partners that have wronged me, and I need to bring justice to that. Wronged me, wronged others, and you know, I've stared myself in the mirror a few times about it and talked to other people. And I don't know the answer to this. Like, do you go after people looking for justice? Is it an ego thing? Is it me trying to just sleep better? Or, you know, is it about getting financial compensation? Or is that even worth it? You know, because I can put that energy into something else and I'll make money. Like, I know how to do that. So yeah, I do have these battles, but you know, the past year, about half of my life is spent in litigation and dealing with lawyers and all the rest of it.
Painful.
Very painful.
And expensive, yeah.
Very expensive and not nice, you know, but...
It's not a pleasant thing. It's funny, you sort of say, what's the right answer? It's a little bit like, I mean, completely different, but it kind of rings of the decision that I can remember facing this decision back around 2012, and my portfolio had gone from, you know, being this huge, big, you know, very, very profitable portfolio to being negative millions. And I can remember thinking to myself, do I hang on or do I declare bankruptcy? And if I declare bankruptcy, I'm starting again with a clean slate tomorrow, a year from now, because obviously there's a 12-month kind of thing. Or will the properties that I have that are all negative right now, will they slowly recover? And I actually can kind of keep on fighting. Yeah. So I decided to go and keep on fighting, and I never declared bankruptcy. But I can remember always wondering, was that the right decision? Because I spent years like trying to just tread water, like just to survive. Hundreds of emails, trying to just deal with the crisis and this and that, and you're kind of thinking to yourself, God, you know, have I made the right decision? Like, if I had just cut all that, I'd have none of this kind of baggage to deal with. I would just be starting with lots of energy, none of this negative stuff. So there's a lot to be, you know, it is a very hard decision, and you ultimately have to go with the right.
Do you know today? Like,
I think it was the right decision now, retrospectively. You know, the funny thing is decision is often delayed, and I think that's the biggest problem. There's a thing that I often talk about inside of my coaching about the 3 or the 4 Ds of a crisis, and there's this distraction. You kind of don't think you really are in a crisis, so you're kind of like, no, I don't think there's really a crisis here at all, and you just, you know, you keep on doing what you're doing, and then you finally realize, oh, there is a crisis. So the delay that you means that now it's a worse decision if you had just taken action at the time. So if I had decided, like, I am going to be radioactive for the next like 5 or 6 years, if I had decided right away, if I'd owned up to that at the very beginning and declared bankruptcy, I would have been out of bankruptcy, and I would have been able to take advantage of all the low prices. But I hung on and I delayed that decision, and that delayed decision meant that you had already spent a couple of years fighting. So what's the point now in pulling the plug after all these years? Whereas maybe the end isn't like just around the corner. So, but that's after 4 or 5 years of fighting. And you're like, you know, I should have pulled the plug much earlier if I wanted to be able to take advantage of this. You know?
I mean, hindsight's a wonderful thing though, because you could have easily made the other decision, be sitting here today, well, what if this? And that's what I found, because, you know, I've taken some long, hard things, and crisis isn't just, well, for me anyways, crisis isn't just one decision. It's a makeup of hundreds of decisions. Like we had, and one situation snowballs into another and causes multiple. Like one of the instances, without going into too much detail, is I had a business partner that just went off the rails. One particular business partner and one particular part of the business, and so I think he was influenced by some bad apples that sort of changed his way of thinking, and he just didn't have the headspace to see any others. And through a series of rash decisions he made, one of our key banks left us, and that was a bank that was funding a live site. And I'm the one that's dealing with the subcontractors and the design team and all the rest of it. I was the front end, the sharp end of the business, and he was sitting far removed from the front edge, and it's that one decision led to 50 situations that had to be dealt with. And even if I can do something about that major decision, I've still got to deal with all these other things. So it becomes very complicated very quickly. And I learned I'm never going to please everybody. In fact, you're probably going to please very few people, because most people don't see the sort of position that you're sitting in and how you have to make some very difficult decisions for the greater good to, cut a limb off to save the body kind of thing. And you're really the only person that gets that perspective. And I sort of had to sort of give up, try to, please people and all the rest of it, and think, no, I just need to make a decision that's going to give the best result, best outcome. And maybe it's not a good outcome,
it
but
is
it's
difficult.
The best one.
I can imagine if the bank stopped funding a live site and you're the front man, you're getting a load of phone calls. You didn't know that the bank had pulled the plug, and you're, hey, why is the site closed? Like, why didn't you tell me that it was going to be closed today? And you're like, what are you talking about?
Well, I found out on the Friday that we won't be getting the funds on the Monday, and I was doing everything I could. I mean, I went down to London to their offices, to the door, and they lied to me. They said, "Oh yeah, okay, we'll give you some time. We'll give you 8 weeks and all the rest of it." They didn't. They lied to my face. So you're making decisions on, the best information you have, but sometimes that information's wrong. And the guys on the site, they don't get that. You're the big boss,
Well, they think that you're maybe not telling them everything, and that he knows something, and he's just not telling us, not sharing it.
The conspiracy theories that comes out and the stories is remarkable. Some of them I had to crack up, but some things came back to me, and it's like quite funny. It was quite good. But I find that, we were talking before about working internationally. And I don't know what it's quite like in Ireland, but in the UK, particularly in Scotland, I think, I've noticed it more in Scotland than I have in England or Wales. Some people feel good when they see other people down, and some people will lean into it, and those people actually have the loudest voice, and other people pay attention to them. So I found that for whatever reason, it's not on my radar of my mentality that some people just wanted me to suffer a bit, because maybe it makes them...
You've gotten a bit big for your boots or something like that?
I don't know, I think maybe that's it. I don't know, I've never figured it out, but what I sort of landed on is it sort of makes maybe them feel better about their miserable lives, if that's not too harsh a way of saying it,
Well, this is actually, it's true. There's mindsets out there. There's the win-win collaborative mindset where you and I do a deal and we're both going to be winners. Yeah. And then there's somebody else, I know a couple of these guys who are not happy unless it's transactional. They're not happy if you're coming away with some sort of a win. It means that it wasn't a great deal. You should be coming away like licking your wounds. Yeah. And Donald Trump being the perfect example, and look at the relations that the Allies, Canada, Europe now, everyone is against him. Yeah. For what? Because he's the big guy, with the big economy that can kind of do all this, but I think he's doing terrible damage. And so it's interesting to be able to kind of witness that. Yeah.
He did it in his property career as well, He'd work in a city for as long as he could until everybody hated him, then he just moved city. It's nothing new. Yeah.
So tell us about, what's it like living in Cyprus?
Cyprus is great. It's not just Cyprus. Cyprus is almost just like the package that goes along with it. It was a conscious move. There's lots of advantages to having my business incorporated there, but the events that happened, yes, they were terrible at the time and stressful, and I've got a lot more grey hairs about it and all the rest of it. But in honesty, it's the best thing that ever happened to me, because I think the business was charging at pace down a path Sure, we could have kept on going. I could have done a whole number of things. In fact, one of the things that I did to that business, we parcelled it up, and some bits we let die, some bits we kept, and some bits we passed on to others and sold. And when I was making all these decisions, we actually just secured £1.5 million in finance. So one of the things I was doing was weighing up, do I chuck more money in or do I let it go? So I was just doing everything to see what would stick, because you can't really make a decision until you know what ingredients you have to cook with. So I was running around and speaking to different lenders and finance and things, and I got a few different offers, and the most attractive offer was £1.5 million unsecured to put behind the business. So what I ended up doing, in fact, was the bits of the business that was successful that I passed on to somebody else, they got the business with a line of credit, which sort of made the deal a bit sweeter for them. But had all that not have happened, I mean, I could have taken that credit facility and kept it going, but who knows, is that the best thing? I don't know.
Well, the thing is as well, if you look back at how you were feeling about the business, like you were not enjoying the last year
awful.
or two.
Yeah, it sucked. Yeah,
and that's it. And so it's like, yesterday we had the Investor Summit, and one of the things that I talked about was just like, are you actually enjoying what you do for a living? Like it's great if you're earning money, but are you, trudging through, mud, or are you sort of finding this is really enjoyable experience to kind of doing what you do? Yeah,
no, it was torture, and I felt it was a very weird period. It almost feels like a movie. It's almost difficult to put myself back in there. When I think about it, it's like I'm watching on a screen, but I was in a place where I felt like I was letting people down. I was letting myself down. I couldn't understand, because I've enjoyed a very successful career, and I've got myself back into that place now. But I remember at the time thinking, like, what is this? Like, I've not experienced this level of issues before. I've dealt with difficult projects and things going on and all the rest of it, but I really went through a place of like introspective reflection that I'd never been to before. And it was painfully hard. But like I said, it was a necessary thing. Sometimes you have to, stare down the barrel to see what you're made of. And it forced me to stop, sort of slow down to speed up kind of thing. Assess the business, say, is this the right thing? Because, as I said before, the business sort of became a beast of its own, and I was just sort of pulling the levers here and there, but it really was sort of driving itself. And it was going in directions based on the market, based on what contracts were available and all the rest, not necessarily because I was making decisions about where I wanted to take it. And I found once I offloaded some of the weight to other companies, other businesses that could absorb that, and that was sort of the direction that they were going anyways, I was left like in a much freer space going, right, what do I want to do? Where do I want to take this? And completely leaned the business up, got the finances on an even keel, sort of business 101, get the basics right. Like I said before, there's 3 people that I deal with daily. I can work from anywhere. If I've got an internet connection, I'm working. Like this morning I was...
Remote work.
It's amazing.
It is nice, isn't it?
It's amazing. And
Stop saying that, we're in an office space.
Yeah, it's a Sunday, nobody's here. But I see, when the COVID pandemic came around and working from home suddenly became an actual thing that everybody was facing, I was the biggest skeptic. I was like, no, we need people in a team and
culture
and you learn by osmosis and overhearing conversations, and if you've got a problem, you should be able to walk to someone's desk and deal with it, and you need to be able to look around and see who's working and who's not. Bullshit. It's where I'm at right now. Like, honestly, I'm such a converted so much. I mean, some people aren't suited to it, but my philosophy is I just don't hire those people.
Yeah.
I just hire people that can do it. Self-motivated, like autonomy, disciplined, all the rest of it, process-driven, system-driven. And you still need to, there's still a lot of work, you still need to develop a culture. It's just that culture looks different. So I say I only deal with 3 people, and there's lots of people in our business, but I've got managing directors and all the rest of it now, and they deal with the day-to-day. And we still do organise regular meetups. In construction, people meet up anyways. Construction and property development people meet up anyways on sites. We've got site cabins and things like that, and people are interacting regardless, just by design. But we'll still do. We're trying to do it. We've done it twice last year, and this year we're going to do it 4 times, like quarterly, full team meetups in a space. But we don't need an office. In fact, in 2-3 weeks, I'm going back to Edinburgh to empty our office and hand the keys back. And we can just hire a boardroom, WeWork or a Regus or something like that. Get everybody together. We don't need,
don't need all the baggage.
Else.
Yeah.
No, and we still do, like, obviously Teams meetings and all the rest of it. We do all that, but within the team that I see, anyways, the culture is no weaker. In fact, stronger in some ways, because you're forced to hire the right people, and also you can hire from a much wider pool. I've got employees in different continents now, and rather than having to only hire from a commutable distance, you can hire from anywhere in the world, which is incredibly empowering.
This episode is brought to you by my very own Elite Property Accelerator. If scaling an investment portfolio is something that you're trying to do, then click on the Learn More link in the show notes, and it should tell you a little bit about how the program works. All right, let's get on with the show. Changing tack a little bit, Charlie, tell us what you think. I mean, this is not just construction, obviously. We're talking about property development. How do you find the UK market now?
If I had a crystal ball, it's so unpredictable. I mean, it's easing up. I think it's from our perspective, anyways, just from the little window that we have, we've had to completely pivot our view. So whereas up until COVID and Liz Truss's grenade and all that fun stuff,
and spiking of interest rates and all that.
Spiking of interest rates, construction cost inflation. Certain things have moved and certain things haven't moved. So end values of properties haven't moved anywhere near as quick as construction costs and development costs, the cost of finance.
So the delta, the profit is shrinking.
That's the only thing that's left. I mean, land values has not really moved as much. That's the bit that should move. Land prices should come down, but they haven't. So whereas we used to do a lot of new build construction, it's almost impossible to find something that sticks these days. Like before 2020-ish, let's say, for every 5 deals that I'd be sent, there'd be 1 out of those 5 to go, oh yeah, I like the look of that. Now it's 1 in 20, and even if I like the look of it, it's at a pinch. I'm a lot more reserved about what we'll go for now. We stress test things higher. We want more breathing room. One thing that we're super interested in is commercial to residential conversions. We're buying a few office buildings right now, and I can buy an office building in a city centre location cheaper than it would be for me to buy the land and build a superstructure. So it's sort of a no-brainer, and those kind of things we can make work. So yeah, that's interesting. I think you just have to be a lot more resourceful, creative, a lot more work. A heck of a lot more work, and less profit. So you need to be more on top of your management, your development management, to make sure that you keep within the white lines that you've set, and just be really diligent in terms of if things start to move, you need to be on it quicker and sharper. There's less. I mean, there wasn't much breathing room to begin with. There's even less now, and obviously, from a fundraising side, it's touchy. I mean, I've done a few rounds of fundraising over the past couple of years, and people are so tetchy about the UK. So I have to go a lot further afield. There's people that I would phone. I had people that would say to me, like 3 or 4 times a year, Charlie, have you got anything that I can put some money into? That was the norm. I'd have a handful of people that were always looking to invest. If I phone those people now, we're just going to wait and see. It's the volatility. It's the geopolitical volatility. Looking at the markets, not just property, but everything. Commodities and precious metals, and everything just moves so fast. So,
but also there was also a change of government in the UK that probably, because I know, at least my own network of people in the UK, I know a good dozen people that have actually upped sticks and moved to Dubai.
Well, not Dubai, but
completely just decided not going to do anything. And yourself, obviously, you went to Cyprus, and that is like a consequence of change of government, change of, the sense of the market, what's going on. Is there an optimism there, or is there?
I think it's got to. Like the UK is, I think, too big to fail in terms of its economy and its market. So I think, yes, the boundaries are being tested, but I think those boundaries are elastic and they'll pop back, at least I hope. We've just gone through several years, or a handful of years, of government introducing policies that are anti-entrepreneurial. And if you don't have fertile ground, nothing's going to grow. But people, we still have to produce. We've still got to, make a living. So if you can't do it in the UK, you're going to go somewhere else. That's a child could figure that one out. So we've gone through several years of just a government that are imposing policies that are to please the masses. Call a spade, it's to get votes. They come out with these slogans that sound great and sound catchy, and tax the rich, and all these regulations that are targeting business and landlords. Which, look, do you know what? I'm on board with all that, to be honest with you. In principle, fine. If you make more money, you probably should pay more tax. That's sensible. If you're a landlord, you shouldn't be able to run slums and profiteer from it. But that's not what we've created, or we've swung so far the other way that no one can breathe now, and to have any kind of business idea, the barrier to entry to just run a small business or an SME is crippling. And business owners, landlords take on so much risk, and when you take on risk, you need to weigh up the risk and reward, and it's just the reward isn't there anymore, so why would you take the risk? And then we've now a stale economy because nobody's doing anything, and then that's self-perpetuating. So I think it will bounce back because it has to.
Well, it's funny, because if you think about it from the point of view of all property markets are cyclical. Economies are cyclical, property markets in particular, and there's a time to be really active and there's a time to be sitting back and, practicing your golf game. That's what I remember hearing somebody very successful saying that. He says, just, don't be so busy. It's like it's not the time to be buying or doing anything. And it's interesting because here in Ireland we're very active. We have a housing crisis here. Planning is a real slow. It's so slow, the planning process here, that there is a huge backlog, and we just cannot satisfy the demand. So the supply is so limited compared to. We are putting about 35,000 housing units out a year. We need 85,000 a year, so we're 50,000 short. And if that's just in 1 year, you're 50,000 behind. It's been like this for years. So that's 250,000 homes that we are short. And we're only building at 30,000 a year. So it's going to be interesting to see. How would you say the UK compares in terms of the housing? I would have thought that there's still quite a housing shortage over there.
There is. It's funny because I travel over to Ireland frequent and meet with house builders here, and the problems are very similar. I think a lot of Irish house builders I speak to say, "Oh, you've got it so good in the UK," and lots of UK house builders speak to say, "Oh, they've got it easy in Ireland." Got the same issues. There's differences. I think in the UK we've got more opportunities to fund deals, and I think there's maybe more deals available. Planning in the UK is still really tough, and that's the biggest bottleneck, similar to Ireland. I've done simple planning applications that have taken 3-4 years.
Jeez. It sounds about the same.
Yeah, something's got to give. The problems are similar. We're incredibly far behind on our housing targets as well, and it doesn't help when governments change, or even sometimes the government doesn't change, but the housing policy does. So everybody's always sort of on the back foot because things move in consequence, and lenders and financiers will react to government policy, and then that dictates what developers can build. And if everybody's sitting waiting, it's everybody's sitting waiting. So problems are the same. Huge shortage in housing. Is it going to get better? I don't personally see any indications that it will.
Right now.
No, I don't see anybody making the right noises.
Do you know what the funny thing is I was just, as you're saying that, I was thinking, people listening, why on earth would they get into property?
I ask myself the same question sometimes.
But the thing is like, there's also, you've got to sort of say to yourself, it's the night is always darkest just before the dawn. And if I can remember after the crash of 2008, I can remember around 2012, it was really depressing. I was living abroad. I used to fly back here to visit family and stuff. And I remember driving around thinking, oh my God, I just cannot live here anymore. It's like so depressing. And that was the best moment to be buying.
Yeah.
That was the moment when, if you could raise the money and if you had the conviction that things will change and it'll go up, you would have made, tens of millions, because you would have bought stuff at a quarter of the price that it is worth today. And that's the thing is I think I try to remove myself from the sentiment of the market, because if everyone is saying oh, it's terrible, it's depressing, I can't see the end of this, that's actually maybe a good time to start looking,
I couldn't agree with you more, and that's exactly what we're doing. I mean, yes, it's depressing. If we're talking about the markets objectively, then yes, it is a dire time, but we're rubbing our hands together, and funding is difficult because lots of people are emulating the dire view that the media is portraying. But for the select few that are looking at it exactly the way that you've just looked at it, I mean, for the office market is such an opportunity right now.
It's on its knees, yeah.
It's on its knees, and commercial valuations are being thrashed, and we're looking at a deal right now. We'll go into details because we've not made an offer yet, but we're going to make an offer about between 2 to 2.3 million. It was on the market 28 months ago for 6 million. And all that happens is it takes 2-3 tenants to leave, the income's slashed, valuer comes around and says, well, sorry, this is the income now. So that we're delighted, and we have found a few very select investors who are mirror that excitement. It's few and far between. You have to work a lot harder, but I'm with you on that. Now's the time to be active and busy. I'm not practicing my golf game anyway. So.
It's funny. I work with a fund that have an office in New York City, and we were just chatting recently about a deal that happened in America. And in New York City, a skyscraper was bought by an investor for I think it was something as low as 6 million. And this thing, the last transaction on it had been something like 120 million. And so somebody went in and just saw a bargain and like, I'll snap that one up,
Yeah.
And that's the kind of thing. And everyone will be thinking, oh, he's mad. Like, he's crazy to be buying in this market. And then a couple of years from now, oh, wow, he seemed to see something before anyone else did.
Everyone tells you're mad when you're doing it. It's only after the fact that, I wish I did that,
Yeah. So anyway, Charlie, you and I are doing a little bit of a venture together in my Elite Property Accelerator has been growing steadily here in the Irish market, but it's always been difficult for me to attract UK-based property people because the focus didn't sort of seem to be. And now that you're on board, we're actually going to have a mastermind, a UK mastermind that is going to be yourself. It's going to be dedicated to the UK. So anyone who is enjoying this podcast and listening and wants to be a part of that, do reach out. I'll put some details down below. Tell us, Charlie, what is on the agenda for you? What's what's the next couple of years going to look like?
Sustainable growth in the business. So we are buying right now. So our interest is continuing to develop. We can't stop. The problem is if there's a delay in anything in property. So if I stop now, I'll only really see the consequence of that in 3-4 years' time when maybe things have changed. So for me, there's no point in stopping. So we're continuing to buy, we're continuing to develop. We're buying businesses as well. So when I mentioned before, I've only got 3 members of staff. We still have a very active construction presence, and the way that we're achieving that is we're buying other contracting companies. So we're focused on construction service businesses. So we're interested in project managers, quantity surveyors, architects, engineers. We've got some funding behind us to deal with that, just keep on going. Head up, chin up, and keep focus.
And do you keep your focus on the UK market? Have you looked at any property in Limassol?
I wouldn't. No, it's not for me. I don't understand it well enough. I've looked at stuff before overseas. I'd maybe be tempted to do something in the States. Definitely be tempted to do something here in Ireland. I've looked at a few sites already. Anywhere outside of that is too far out of my area of knowledge for now. Who knows? Yeah. I mean, if I meet someone that's got particular knowledge in a certain jurisdiction and I feel comfortable with them, I might go for it. But for now, UK, Ireland, maybe America, I think there's some opportunities there.
Interesting. I'm just back from Dubai, and I have to say it's an interesting market.
Yeah,
I am quite interested in what's happening in Dubai, and there's an energy there that I kind of enjoy, I have to say. A lot of construction. You'd love it.
Yeah, no, I'll have to get over. I've been a few times, but not for a while. So yeah. I'd love to see. You were telling me yesterday about some of the things.
I'll show you some of the stuff. Yeah. Anyway, Charlie, conscious of time, you've not been on this podcast before, so what I normally do is I ask my guest, what advice now, what age are you now?
32.
32, ripe old age of 32. 18 years of age, Charlie, what advice would you give that young Charlie?
Don't listen to everybody's advice. Trust your own feeling and gut and intuition, because people distract you along the way if you're not careful.
That's good advice. I tell you what as well I found is that the people whose advice you'll ask a lot of the time, they're like family and stuff like that, and a lot of the time they're there to protect you, but they don't know enough to actually give the advice. No. And so the protection that they're looking to give you is really, don't do that, what sounds very risky to them. And a lot of the time it's well-meaning advice, but bad advice.
Take advice from people who are doing what you want to do and where you're going. But if they've not done it, if they don't have experience in it, everyone loves to give advice, everyone loves to dish it out, and it can sound quite compelling at times, but yeah, I'd only take advice from people who are actually doing what I want to do or where I'm going.
Charlie, thank you.
Thanks, Gavin. It's been great.
All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Charlie. He's achieved a lot for a young age. He is like a full 20 years behind me. And I can only imagine what he's going to have achieved by the time he hits my age. And so, once again, a quick reminder, Charlie is now running the UK chapter of my mastermind, and I still look after the Irish chapter. Charlie looks after the UK chapter, and we're growing the business. So if you're interested to know more about the accelerator and the various courses and mentoring that I do and things like that, then just click on learn more down in the show notes, and it'll bring you through and explain everything. And so until our next conversation, I'll see you then.